Yeah, what we did is we first cut the shoulder section off, which is this section right here, and that's what I would call the Boston butt. We just separated, excuse me then, we just separated right there, which is the, yeah, goes just like that. Actually, I got this wrong piece. Those two pieces go together. That's your, what we'd call your picnic. That's what you would call your Boston butt. My goal in cutting that first cut off the pig, I cut the front shoulders. And my idea behind this is to cut just kind of where the blade section starts into, I'm going to use it like a beef, in the prime rib section, in the rib section. So right just in front of that blade. So usually in a 3 to 4 ribs is my first cut off the pig. And then I turn it around and split it in half, as you've seen earlier. Then I'm after the hams. I'm separating the hams from the loin and the bacon area. And usually what I'm after, my next cut, what I use for a guide is kind of 2 fingers behind that H-bone. So I'm not too far off right there. The next thing that we're doing on this pig here today, this customer here, what we're after is getting him a couple roasts of his front shoulders, so we're going to give him a couple picnics. And that's going to go to one of my boners. And then with this blade section, or Boston butt area, is wicked for pulled pork if it was going to go for roast, because there's lots of marbling in there. Other than this customer would prefer more steaks than roast, so we're going to actually slice that here today. So we're going to slice the Boston butts, then we're going to move on to the loins, slice the loin, which I'll show you in a minute, and we're going to smoke his hams and bacons here today, so we're going to be leaving them whole. Our hocks, we're just boning them out. Some people take them for pork stew or sausage. Today we're making ground pork out of them, so I'll throw that down there, and I'll go back to slicing the Boston butt. That was my first cut to square things up. As you can see, I'm not a big fan of leaving sending wedges, I guess, so I just kind of trim it up to get squared up and get my grain set squared away. Throw that into burger. We're after some nice inch thick shoulder steaks here today. These hams, I'm just going to trim them up a little bit. Take a little excess fat off here. Trim the tailbones off them. Getting these trimmed up and ready for smoking here today. Then we're going to cut this pork hock off. We're going to take the knuckle part off next, and then my next cut, there's a joint where it joins in here, and that's where it kind of changes over to real gristly stuff, the nicer, cleaner quality grains of meat. So we're kind of headed after that joint. As you can see, we were just a little bit above it, which is not too bad where I want to be, where this is going for a smoking ham. That'll give us a little extra room.
Show me what I'm looking at there.
You're after the pork hock. Here, this is just the bottom end of your pork hock where it's real gristly in there. That's going to go to pork burger right there. This here's your ham, the breakdown of your ham. When we go to smoke that, I'm just cutting the H-bone off that. When we go to smoke that, our regular cut on this would be take a butt roast, cut it again here, and then take some center cut slices out of this area, and then you'd end up with a shank roast on this end. But for right now, we're going to leave it whole, we're going to string it, and we're going to put a letter on there so we can identify it after it comes out of the smoker. Same thing again with this one. Cutting that area off. There's a hawk. That goes to garbage. That goes to a boner. This one's going to have the letter B on it. Now we're down to the pork loin. We got this pig pretty much the bulk of it cut up. Now we're going to do our 2 pork loins. So again, I'm going to set my guide here. Inch thick is what we're after today. The customer would like to have them nice and thick for barbecue season. Again, we're just going to square up. I might have been a little bit off on my original cut. So I'm just going to take a small slice off to square things up. Send that down for burger. There, now we're nice and straight. Got the backbone nice and straight. Is kind of what we're after to get the proper grains coming up through. So I'm going to slice the sirloin end off first. These are some pretty nice pigs today. I think just the right amount of fat. We'll actually send that over. We'll scrape the sawdust off these and trim that boat half fat. So that's not a lot of waste. That's a pretty nice pig right there. Now I get down to this point in the rib end where we're custom cutting, and I do this for all my customers. A lot of times in the big chain stores and different things, they'll just continue on slicing because they're selling this by the pound. So that those feather bones and that backbone will stay on there and sell that by the pound. But I'm custom cutting majority of my time, and I'm a big meat eater myself, and I don't really care for a lot of that bone. So I actually trim that backbone. And I like to take these, I'm just going to hit that again with the saw. Take that here, move over here off this saw a little bit. I'm going to take them feather bones off that. And to me, when the customer sits down to eat them pork chops, I think he's going to be a lot happier. Make a nicer edible product instead of having to fight the bone into that corner. It can bite right into the corner.
And you do everything twice.
Do everything twice, exactly. We're lucky on this one. This customer, there's 2 whole pigs here that we've cut one here this morning, and we'll go down and go through the cuts on it, show you the final presentation of it. So they were all together. Makes my job a lot easier. Sometimes pigs are kept separate, sides sometimes are separate. That's about as far as I like to divide it. Any less or more than that makes it quite complicated on my end. This one's real simple for us this morning. Again, I just want them chine bones off the back of that. To me, with that chine bone off there, just makes a nicer presentation, nicer eater friendly, I would call it. Sometimes I get a little grief on how close my hands get to the saw blade. That's a pretty important thing, safety number one. I've been doing this for quite a long time, but definitely some saws and some people use pusher plates. By all means, I think it's very good. One thing I just do is when I get down to this low, I bring out another couple pieces of meat, kind of safety, keep my hands back, and shove them through that way. And that's burger there. So we're down to the spare ribs here. We're getting to the final cuts of this pig. Again, I like to cut the ribs about 2.5 inches long in that area. We get down to this bottom end. I kind of trim the brisket off there a little bit. And then this is cartilage. I like to just kind of snip into that. Makes it, again, a little user friendly on the guy eating it. And that's the saw work on a breakdown, the initial breakdown of a pig. We're starting out with a whole pig here, all cut today. I've got it kind of laid out here from front to tail here. And this is the front quarter section here. This is the mid section of the pig, and then this is his hind quarters right here. So we talked about earlier about when we started cutting was the picnics and the Boston butts. So these are your two picnic shoulder roasts. We turned these into roast for this customer here. And then we talked about the Boston butt area, which sometimes we can leave as roast, but this customer wanted more fry meat due to being barbecue season. The reason we like this for pulled pork is just because all the heavily marbling that is in this area makes wicked pulled pork. Also makes a very nice shoulder steak on barbecue as well. So there's our front shoulder of our pig. Now we're going to move to our midsection. So this is our loin area here. So we've sliced these all into chops, nice 1-inch thick pork chops, which are going to make very nice on the barbecue this summer. And then we've got our spare ribs that these here are, I would say, belly ribs or St. Louis style, I guess. They're not baby back ribs because the baby back ribs are actually attached to the pork chops here. We didn't bone them out, so that would normally be the baby back ribs, but we left them right on the rib pork chops. So now there's your spare ribs. We've got our pork bellies that we're leaving whole here today because we're going to be brining them and going into smoking. So that takes care of our midsection of our pork. We're back to our hind quarters here. The only thing that we're missing off this right now is our pork hocks and a little bit of trimmings, which is what we just turned into ground pork or pork hamburger today, which is in this tub. And then we have our two chunks that we're going to have for ham. We've strung them and we've lettered them. We've got the letter B right there. That's in our book. That's so we can identify it after it's being smoked. So there's our two hams and our ground pork. And then the lard off this pig. This customer chose to have it ground, which is our next step, is all in the grinder. That's a pig in a nutshell right there.